It's valuable for the players. Like let's use the technology that's there. I mean, we've got all this new stuff. Like people record everything with these meta glasses, and there's some really cool stuff that you can do.
He transferred from Arizona State to LSU. They started using the GoPros and virtual reality to simulate what they see on the GoPros on non-throwing days.
The Browns just added new technology to the quarterback battle. The Cavs are quietly staring at a playoff problem people keep downplaying, and Andrew Berry is once again sitting on the kind of draft decision that could either save this offense or make Browns fans lose their minds all over again. And the reason all of this matters right now is because these are not three random stories floating around Cleveland sports. They all connect to the same bigger question. Who actually has a real plan here, and who is just hoping things work out? Because when you look closely, the Browns are trying to find clarity at quarterback, the Cavs are trying to survive weak spots in the rotation without getting exposed, and Andrew Berry is still being asked to solve major roster problems at positions where his track record has been shaky at best.
Yeah, this is a technology that, as Mike said, it's been around for a while. Maybe hasn't been quite tapped into by the Browns.
Let's start with the Browns, because this part is fascinating. The quarterbacks were out there wearing GoPros on their helmets, and at first glance it sounds gimmicky, right? It sounds like one of those things teams do just to look modern and forward-thinking. But the more you think about it, the more you realize this is actually a very big deal, especially in a quarterback room where nobody should feel totally comfortable. Because now, this is not just about what coaches think they saw from the sideline. This is not just about all 22 film, or some generic coach's copy, or what a quarterback says he was looking at. Now, the Browns can literally go back and see what the quarterback saw. They can track the eyes, track the progressions, track the pre-snap picture, and even hear the communication. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This kind of technology matters the most when the quarterback battle is not fully settled, even if the coaches already have a favorite in their head. And I do not care what anybody says, coaches always have a lean. They always do. They may not have announced it, they may still want competition, they may still want the room to fight it out. But the idea that a new coach walks into a room with absolutely no preference at all is nonsense. That is not how football works. He has watched tape. He has formed opinions. He has traits he likes more in one guy than another. So when the Browns start using helmet cameras in that environment, they are not just collecting cool footage. They are collecting evidence. They are trying to see if what they thought about each quarterback actually matches what happens from the quarterback's own point of view.
Todd Monken said, well, it's a valuable tool unless you want to be standing in the huddle to hear their communication, right? What's actually being relayed from myself to them to the players, and then it allows you to pre-snap and then post-snap get an idea where their eyes are. Are they in the right place?
And that is where this gets really interesting with the Browns. Because if Todd Monken or the coaching staff says, why did you not get to the second read? Or why were your eyes late on the safety? Or why didn't you check out of that look? They do not have to rely on memory anymore. They can just go back and watch what the quarterback was actually staring at before and after the snap. That is huge. That is a massive advantage for teaching, for correcting, and for evaluating. It helps the young guys, it helps the veterans, and most importantly, it strips away a lot of excuses. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think quarterback competition is only about arm talent and highlight throws. It is not. A lot of the battle is about processing, seeing the field, understanding what the defense is trying to bait you into, and communicating clearly before the snap. Coaches obsess over that stuff. Fans mostly do not, because fans see the throw. Coaches see the thought process before the throw. So if the Browns now have technology that lets them study the exact visual picture from the quarterback's helmet and compare it to what should have happened, that is a serious tool in deciding who is actually ready to run the offense.
Do they have microphones on them so they can hear them at the line of scrimmage as well? So they can, as they're looking, they can hear the audio?
I'm sure the GoPros have
GoPro probably has
Oh, it does?
audio,
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah, most GoPros have built-in microphones.
Never messed with GoPros.
And the audio part matters too. That part should not get overlooked. Because now, the staff can hear the huddle communication, hear what is being relayed, hear how cleanly the quarterback is controlling the operation, and hear whether the message is getting from the coaches to the quarterback to the rest of the offense the way it is supposed to. That matters a lot more than people realize. A quarterback can make a pretty throw and still be sloppy in command. A quarterback can look fine in drills and still not own the huddle. The Browns are clearly trying to speed up that evaluation by gathering more information, and honestly, it feels overdue. This is where it gets dangerous, because more information is great, but it also means there is nowhere to hide now. If a quarterback keeps drifting with his eyes, now they know. If he is rushing off his first read too early, now they know. If he is missing a pre-snap tell he should be catching, now they know. And if one quarterback is clearly cleaner than the others in how he sees the field, that can create separation fast. In a room where people are already debating who the favorite is, this kind of technology can either confirm what the staff hoped to see or expose things they were trying to ignore.
I don't know if it was Todd Monken's idea, but kudos to him.
Now, I still do not buy the idea that everybody is starting from the exact same line. I do not. There is always context. There is always prior tape. There is always a guy a coach wants to work. There is always a player they are hoping steps forward and takes the job. That is true in college, it is true in the NFL, and it is definitely true in Cleveland right now. But even if the staff has a lean, this technology still matters because it can either strengthen that lean or force a rethink. Maybe the coach wants one guy to win, but the GoPro film keeps showing another guy seeing the game cleaner. That is how battles get flipped. And that is why I actually love this move from the Browns. It is not magic. It does not suddenly turn anybody into Tom Brady. It does not guarantee the right starter is picked, but it makes the decision more informed. It gives you more detail. It gives the quarterbacks more teaching points. It gives the coaches more leverage in the meeting room, because now they are not arguing abstractly. They can say, look, here is exactly what you saw. Here is exactly where your eyes went wrong. And here is exactly why you missed it. There is no downside there. It is only useful.
The Cavs can beat anybody in the East when they're playing at their best.
Now, let's pivot to the Cavs, because this part is a different kind of tension. Cleveland is in one of those weird spots where the team is really good, the ceiling is real, and yet there is still this one uncomfortable conversation hanging over everything. What do you do with the weak link lineups in a playoff series when teams are openly disrespecting a guy offensively? Because that Dean Wade discussion tells you exactly where the Cavs are. They know he is flawed. Everybody knows he is flawed. Nobody is pretending he is a perfect player. But the bigger point is, they don't really have some obvious better answer just waiting behind him. That is what makes playoff basketball so ruthless. The other team finds your least threatening offensive player and basically dares him to matter. They sag off. They ignore him. They make him prove he will shoot, and not just shoot, but make enough of them to force the defense to adjust. That is where Dean Wade becomes such a pressure point. Because the Cavs don't need him to be a star. They don't need 12 points every night. They don't need him hijacking possessions. But they absolutely need him to be willing. If he is wide open, he has to take those shots. He can't play scared. He can't airball one and disappear for the rest of the series. Here's the part nobody's talking about. The Cavs can survive a low-scoring fifth option if Evan Mobley is becoming a real third scorer and Jared Allen is giving you efficient inside offense. That changes everything. If Mobley is giving you 20+, if Donovan Mitchell is healthy and aggressive, if the primary creators are doing what they're supposed to do, then the fifth guy is not there to carry you. He's there to keep the math honest. He's there to make one or two open threes, screen hard, move the ball, defend, and make the opponent pay just enough that they cannot totally ignore him. And that is why the Dean Wade debate is not really about Dean Wade. It's about the ecosystem. It's about whether the Cavs have enough shot creation and front court scoring around him to make his limitations livable. If they do, then fine. If they don't, then those empty possessions get ugly fast in a playoff series, because teams in the postseason do not miss those weak spots. They attack them over and over again until you either adjust or break. That is what makes it such a pressure point, even if on paper it looks like a small issue. This is where it gets dangerous for Cleveland, because if the defense is treating Dean Wade like they treated Isaac Okoro in certain moments, the Cavs have to respond creatively, use him as a screener, force his defender into actions, make the defense guard movement instead of just a stationary body in the corner. That is why the mention of James Harden being a pick-and-roll puppeteer matters in that type of conversation generally, because elite ball handlers can weaponize even non-shooters differently if the screening and timing are right. Cleveland has to do the same thing with its own personnel. If a guy is not commanding attention as a standstill shooter, then use him to create attention in another way. And then there's the quickly angle, because that's the kind of playoff swing piece people brush off until he burns you. Guards like that can change the rhythm of a game if you let them get comfortable. They can attack gaps, speed up the tempo, and punish soft coverages before you even realize the damage has piled up. So for the Cavs, the challenge is not just, can Dean Wade hit an open three? It's also, can the rotation hold up on both ends while Mobley, Allen, Mitchell, and the other core guys carry the bigger load?
If the answer is yes, Cleveland can beat anybody in the East when it's playing its best. If the answer is no, the flaws get amplified quickly. Now, let's get to Andrew Berry, because this is where Browns fans probably start sweating all over again. The Browns need help at wide receiver. They need help on the offensive line. And when Andrew Berry is the one holding the choice, people are nervous for a reason. His overall track record at those positions has not inspired trust, and that's putting it kindly. If we're being blunt, the hit rate has not been good enough, especially when you look at the mid-round wide receivers and the offensive line swings that should have produced more by now. Let's just keep it honest. Donovan Peoples-Jones was a fine value for where he was taken. No problem there. But then you start looking at the other receiver picks, and it gets rough fast. Anthony Schwartz, David Bell, Cedric Tillman, late-round swings that didn't really move anything in a meaningful way. Then you look at the offensive line side, and the Jed Wills miss still hangs over everything, because that was real capital, and the result was nowhere near good enough. And once a front office stacks enough misses at key offensive positions, fans stop giving the benefit of the doubt. Here's the part nobody's talking about. When a general manager misses enough at wide receiver and offensive line, it changes how every future decision feels, even if the next prospect is good. Fans stop evaluating the player and start evaluating the decision maker. They stop saying, is this receiver a star? And start saying, do I trust Andrew Berry to identify the right receiver? That is a completely different emotional place for a fan base to be in. And right now, Browns fans are there. So the big question becomes simple. If the Browns are sitting there with a chance to take a receiver or an offensive tackle, which position do you trust Berry more on? Honestly, I get why people lean receiver. Part of that is because in this specific draft, if there is a no-brainer guy sitting there, then it feels easier. Just make the obvious pick. Don't get cute. Don't overthink it. Don't outsmart yourself. Sometimes the best thing a GM can do is not prove how clever he is. It's just take the player everybody knows can help. At offensive tackle, though, things feel murkier. Evaluations get trickier. Projection matters more. Side changes matter. Development matters more. And Browns fans are tired of hearing about projection and upside when they need real answers. There's also the simple frustration of taking college tackles and then asking them to shift around instead of just letting them play the position they actually played. Fans are tired of experiments. They want functional players. They want stability. They want someone who looks like he can help immediately and hold up long-term. This is where young front offices usually make a mistake. They fall in love with traits and forget about context. Big body, great length, nice movement, raw upside, all of that sounds good in a draft room. But if the guy is not going to play the same spot, if the development curve is longer than expected, or if the player is being dropped into a situation that doesn't suit him, then suddenly your smart pick turns into another what went wrong story. Browns fans have lived through enough of those at these positions already. And that is why the WR versus OT debate around Andrew Berry feels so loaded. It's not just what does the roster need more, it's also what can this front office actually be trusted to do correctly? That's a painful question for a team in this position, because ideally your fan base should feel confident if you tell them, we need a tackle, or we need a receiver. With the Browns, the reaction is more like, okay, but are you sure the same people making the pick are going to get it right this time? Still, this is also where the larger Cleveland sports picture starts to connect. The Browns are using technology to remove as much uncertainty as possible in the quarterback evaluation. The Cavs are trying to reduce the damage from weak spots by finding the right role balance. And Andrew Berry is being forced into another major offensive choice where uncertainty still follows him. All three situations are really about the same thing. Can Cleveland decision makers make the right call before the pressure turns into regret? And honestly, that's what makes Cleveland sports so compelling right now. There is real upside here. The Browns are at least acting like a team that wants every possible edge in quarterback evaluation. The Cavs really can beat anyone in the East when they are whole and their core is firing. And the Browns still do have a chance to make a difference-making draft pick if Berry doesn't overcomplicate it. But that hope only matters if the decisions actually line up with reality.